All right. Welcome everyone to the Grolier Poetry Bookshop for another wonderful, what I'm sure will be a wonderful reading this evening. I'm Ben Bellet, and I'm sad to report that I was not the first choice to introduce these wonderful poets. Unfortunately, the person who was going to introduce them was unable to attend on short notice tonight. I have no qualifications for this role, aside from the fact that I love the Grolier and I love poetry, and so I'll do my best to get us started here. The way we're going to run this is I'm just going to read the intros for the poets in the order in which they will read, and then I'm going to let them do their thing. And then I might pop back up here at the end so everyone can, to encourage everyone to clean up the chairs and all that, if you're up for it. So our readers tonight are Margaret Ross, Alan Felsenthal, and Rosa Alcalá. Margaret Ross is the author of 2 books of poetry, A Timeshare, which was put out by Omnidon in 2015, and Saturday, which was published in 2024 by The Song Cave. Her poems and translations have appeared in Granta, Harper's, the Paris Review, and Poetry. The recipient of a Stegner Fellowship, a Fulbright Grant, and a Harper Schmidt Fellowship, she is currently a visiting assistant professor of poetry at the Iowa Writers Workshop. Alan Felsenthal is the author of Hereafter, published in 2024 by The Song Cave, and Lowly, published in 2017 by Ugly Duckling Presse. His writing has appeared in Bomb, the Brooklyn Rail, Harper's, the New York Review of Books, and the New York Times Magazine. He is the editor of Bookworm, Conversations with Michael Silverblatt, put out by The Song Cave in 2023, and the co-editor of A Dark Dreambox of Another Kind, the poems of Alfred, Starr, Hamilton, put out by The Song Cave in 2013. He currently teaches poetry at the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Rosa Alcalá is an award-winning poet and translator whose work has received support from the Foundation for Contemporary Arts, Harvard's Woodberry Poetry Room, and the NEA. Her book, Spit Temple, The Selected Performances of Cecilia Vicuña, was runner-up for a PEN Translation Award. You, her 4th poetry collection, was recently published by Coffee House Press. I'll ask y'all now, Margaret Ross.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's an honor to read with Rosa and with Alan. I'm going to read 4 poems. Inner Wall. She didn't care if a person died, but if an animal did, she cried so hard we had to leave the theater. Nothing could appease her but a stuffed doll of the animal on screen. My mother packed my father's sock with cotton balls and stitched on fins cut from a carpet sample. We didn't see the end of the movie. The whale my sister thought would die gets freed, though I later read the whale who played the whale suffered to make those scenes and inspired people to give money to release him from captivity. It's just a movie hadn't shut my sister up, but silenced by the sock, she went to bed. In the dark, we invented a secret knocking language on the inner wall partitioning our room and knocked for a while. Inner wall between our mattresses, then the outer wall dividing us from the sidewalk where a man slept on a folded blanket. Once he came to the playground and stood on the slide, and all the kids got pulled off to the benches to wait. Above him arched the branches of the park trees, leaves against white sky. He wore a blue coat. Some kids were allowed to pee against a certain tree, but we weren't. For years, green paint flaked off the benches. Later, the city added iron armrests to stop people lying down. Small hexagons paved the ground in the park. Large squares made up the sidewalk. Everything seemed ancient and eternal. The river, the bodega, paper lamb in the window of the dry cleaner. Many people sat or slept on the street, and people sang and danced in the train, telling a story I was told I couldn't believe. Suspect admonitions, divisions. Detach yourself from the suffering on which your comfort depends. But I want to remember where I learned to do that. Optimism. One sleeps on the rock above a pool of tap water, while the other tries to climb the slope side of the bowl, slides down, tries again. Stern face with its one expression. No, with two expressions, eyes closed, eyes open, or the head retracted in its shell. Are they happy? Yes. This bowl is a better home than the pail on the street, so packed with turtles, turtles crawled on each other. No smoke but the shell of another, smoke of the turtle seller's cigarette descending. In the bowl, disintegrating food pellets murk the tap water. The turtles are sisters. One grows and the other stays small, so the sisters become mother and daughter. They're girls because we are. When they die, the bowl resumes its old job holding punch at parties. Discs of orange float upon pink liquid like reflected suns. It's fine to be sad about turtles for a little while, but too long is selfish. Voices in the next room slurring, weaving funny stories out of disappointments. Joshua laughs. Long ago, Joshua's baby died, and he will be sad forever, but he can still laugh and can offer others slices of a homemade fruitcake everyone hates but accepts. A turtle can feel pain, but not much. Think how little her head was. Small head, small brain. Small brain, less suffering. A human head is different. It doesn't hurt, my father told the heel of his foot where the seashell dug in. His handkerchief tied a bandage. Then we could follow him as he limped across the hot sand, past hundreds of bodies sprawled on blankets, glistening oiled skin, nipples, mouths slack on the resting faces, dark glasses covering the eyes of some. Spring. Blank page over the visible world, appearing to invite reinvention of the cliffs and road and sea. If you drive here, you have to be careful not to sail the car over the side. The turns are sharp, and the rail, where it exists, is too low to do more than trick a driver into feeling safe. Why build a road in such a dangerous way? Nobody asks that question. Everyone knows a beautiful view from a vertiginous place solves certain problems in the brain. It convinces me I love you. Beside the road, an iron spigot stuck into the cliff dispenses an eternal trickle over rock shelves crowded with coins and flower petals. People stand in the dust, drinking the drinkable water, looking out at the undrinkable. I came here the day after I met you. My father was visiting, and I drove him up with you inside my head, making me generous and extravagantly cheerful. A clear day. When we got to the spring, I praised the ocean, thinking of you. Did he know at that point he was losing his mind? Nothing happened, or only very small things happened that I could now call signs. The biggest waves tossed little veils of spray above themselves that hung midair a moment longer than it seemed they should. After a bigger wave, a small. From the cliff, they all look manageable. A bird lay with its wings spread on the wind's invisible surface. I found a plastic bottle in the car for my father to fill. Traffic was bad on the way back, and it made him furious as always. There'd been an accident. We were stuck on the bridge for 20 minutes with the day spread out around us on all sides. The long, flat cargo barges stacked with freight, and the runner's path along the shore. Then the elevated highway, the steep hills packed with houses and trees, and you were still only the feeling of escaping my life. And this is the last poem. It's a little longer and it's in sections, but they're not numbered. So I'll just pause where there's an asterisk. Love. I always try to memorize his face, but I never can. I can say he has a face, he has a body, an apartment. He has a bowl of ice water where he soaks his hands because of tendons in his fingers. He has a plant with long leaves on the ledge above his toilet. Once, when I was there and he had left the room, I wrote on a scrap of paper in my wallet, "He's just a person," so I could read it later when I was home. I wait where the dirt path through a meadow lets out at a gravel patch beside the paved road. The air smells heavy, opulent. Before the place the redwoods start are orchards. The story is my car broke down and he's a stranger driving by. Or I park on his street and stand a minute, gathering myself behind the car. When I step out front, I'll see him, blue lit, sitting at the window typing. He won't hear me move until I tap my knuckles to the glass. It's hard to look at him right away, so I look at the white stretch of his t-shirt, the nubby lattice pattern of the rug. I step off my heels. He wants me to kneel in front of a mirror and say my name and point to every part of me that's his. At a party, a stranger wearing nothing but a fishing net embraces me because he loves my friend, who wears a matching net with shiny lures taped to her nipples. A person in a Viking costume tells me how the person on the sofa saved her marriage by becoming what she calls their third. She met the person at the park. Their daughters have the same name. When I ask him not to say my name, he thinks I'm saying names would feel too close. They feel too distant. He hands me the folded remnant of a shirt he tore off me the week before. I think you leave things here on purpose. I didn't leave that, it's garbage. You also left your hair thing. Later, we watch a video of him scale a cliff next to the ocean. The day is cloudy, shadowless. We watch his fingers feel out angles of the rock, then pull his body higher. 3,000 people watched it before me. From his bed, you see the dense crown of a fig tree in the yard next door where the tenant hung himself last spring. Now blue tarp curtains the house. The landlord is renovating. I feel a happiness so concentrated, it feels like fear. He has a lamp he softens when I come, draping his shirt over the shade. He has a winding blue-green helix tattooed up his side. On my way, I stop at gas stations and stand in the bathroom checking. If you say the feeling out loud, it sounds comic, disproportionate. I press brown paper towel to my forehead. Sun covered the bed. I lay listening to him moving through the other room, hearing water, hearing something open, shut, then silence, then him coming nearer. How do you get close to a person? Once you got past pleasure, there was pain. No, there was pleasure, turning into something pain was part of. If you can let them hurt you deep enough, you'll be inside the other person. Driving up nights on the freeway, dark fields tearing by on either side, I practice saying hi. Hi. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Margaret, that was wonderful. And I can't wait to hear you read, Rosa. And James, thank you for putting this together. Thank you for always stocking the Song Caves books here. And I'm going to start with the first poem called Elegy from Hereafter. And this I wrote for my friend Bob, who died in 2021, who was a dear friend. Elegy. Electrolytes are hard to see, though they're everywhere. Recover quickly, commanded the blue bottle. When will I be able to leave this planet, you asked? Months for some, hours for others, I read in the hospice brochure. The earth alights on the edge of the ether, calcium in the crust, in the air and water. White lines along your shirt trace where salt left. The friction we feel between us and light is darkness, the pain unable to be untied or loosened. Minerals obey their crystalline structures. The soul seeks remission and requires more. Untrained augur, the sky is omenless, but it's your duty to look at it. Under the sun is nothing at night. The hummingbird in deep torpor, preserving itself with the stiffness of a coma. Stationary or in motion, the force bonding the universe, friendship. In the clearing, a few weeping trees among the shaded beds we can see from yours. Each flicker, cricket, snore of the pickerel frog, howling dog you smiled at. A beaver who kept rebuilding the dam you dismantled, dozes in a hollow warm tonight. Light excels, splits into a spectrum I see you through, the saddest optical path. Other dimensions follow nature, where you will sleep. God is light you can see without being consumed. If you cannot see me, adjust the lampshade. I may be lost to blinking electric headlights bypassing your home. I recently learned the heart can beat outside a chest with help from a machine. The machine works no harder than it needs to, and I acknowledge its restraint. Care exhausts me until I acknowledge everything. I'm here to make the kettle whistle. I thought I'd come and give you a look, the look reserved for visiting hours. I know clocks die without help. I'm no longer afraid of fugitive germs. Yesterday, we learned that suffering is not only not noble, some people don't experience it. And what's worse, unless a doctor tells them, they never know. And the suffering you're feeling as I write this won't turn you into a better person, since the bargain involved with suffering assumes we all do. We don't. The unsympathetic winter, gusting through the oldest white oaks near the Hudson, continues, and so do you, knowing you are cold, while others are less cold or not cold at all. You have done your work. There is no wisdom where you're headed, no vexation either. The bird carries its matter in its voice. I speak into a far-off sound. The loneliest phones don't ring. Are you at the gate? Does this key get you out or keep you in? I say they should let you leave. Your host, who shows up once a week, left a comfort kit in the fridge that I called a clemency box. Haloperidol, lorazepam, promethazine, morphine liquid, etc. The precious ointment is cold. Who lifts the lid? Let him now appear. Windows dim when you attempt to look through. Doors latch themselves. The sounds sunken or quiet, except for the owl. An almond tree we cannot see with white or pink flowers grows beyond the window. There is a shaded street where a broken wheel rolls back its way home. To whom will you return your spirit? You have proven the way toward death is worse than death. Through the shadow of the earth, the soul wafts. I will pay the debts. Is there anything else? This is called Impasse at Sunset. A wish well, I'll start over. Impasse at sunset. A wish stillness shares, its matter due with life. A look betrays light in a dance. The valley you roved, tracked by dusk-filled steps. Trap of nearness, the knock. The door, with its clinched doornail, parts from the threshold. The toll awaits. Step forward. Open the door to lips. They don't speak. They kiss. And this is called Stay Dry. It's better to want nothing more than a voice, to say what is sweet, what is sacred, but not what you can't say. The sky and earth sundered, diamond dust froze for a child to speak at home. Say what you must to the house where your parents lived, even if it's not the same door you remember. The former house hears you. The land remembers all, buildings, homes, temples, and never forgets a foot that traipsed over its face. I've forgotten what I said I wanted to tell you, but no matter. The wind says it for me. The wind says it for you, to know a secret weather holds. It's raining again, and on your birthday, droplets are heavy. Your lover has left you an umbrella. This is called Days Flee from Good. Boundaries of the sea bend. Who were people to believe in? Oceanfront property. The Earth's real message, it's not about you, benefiting from spring. The beneficiary believes in earned reality. If you're unhappy, what have you done? I walk across the mead, the measure of my steps, human chords. When I'm not there, the field strums its own music, and I'm still mortal. Birds eat me before worms, my purpose to feed the trees with blood. I watch a single-footed pigeon mesmerized by a hedgerow. His brother drinks mud. What is it like to not believe? World symbols speak to me. It's never too late for poetry, until it is. My pastoral doesn't pause, permafrost thaw. I'm bent on stopping time mid-infinity. Where I am, there is a duration to being, only beings feel. Stones can be hollow. I don't intend to prevent rest, but to lull us toward a sleep so deep, no alarm ends it, in which we get to know wherever dreams lead, where dream is the uniform we wear to approach a jury of mirrors. A storm is on its way, to ask where we went when the shore met the sea, standing on the sandbank, blind to the incoming tide. Just going to read two more. This is based on a true story. It's called The Hawk at Washington Square Park, in which I saw a hawk at Washington Square Park. Set on a wire on a breezeless day, his frame was a figurine that stared at us. People, eyes on each other, pass. The majestic sentinel sits slightly above our bitterness, his body its own crutch. He is proving the true nature of his greatness by being ignored, as if saying impassively, be noiseless, unseen, not behind or under us. You belong to your times, but above, commit to spirit, yours, and then a gentle wind comes. And this is the final one. It's called Ordering a Casket from Amazon Prime. They do sell them. Avoid cramps by keeping your grip parallel to the hip. 20-gauge steel, but surprisingly light. It's called the Atlas XL. You may hear Atlas and conjure a collection of maps and charts with his picture as the frontispiece. He is the sea. He is a mountain whose cave shelters the witch. He fathers nymphs and protects trees. He carries celestial cities on the nape of his neck. Think of the casket as his open palm, cradling your loved one like a precious metal. Consider the sacrifice he makes by using his palm this way. The golden apples are gone, his shoulders heavy, the heavens unheld drop. Thank you.
Very delicate choreography in here, so let's get in and out. So nice to be here tonight with all of you, with Margaret and Alan. James, thank you for putting this together, and Ben for introducing all of us. When I saw Ben's name, how do you pronounce your last name, Ben? Bellet, but I read it as Ben Bellet. So anybody who knows one of Lorca's translators is Ben Bellet? So I saw introduced by Ben Bellet tonight, and I just thought, oh, okay. Had one of those like after Lorca Spicer moments, when Ben Bellet's Lorca's translator comes to the Grolier. But very nice to meet you, Ben. We don't need the other one tonight.
Sorry to disappoint.
Not at all. I'm going to read from this book called You. It was published in April by Coffee House Press. And it's their poems in the second person, their prose poems in the second person, except for the first poem, which is an introduction to the book. How it started, how it's going, an introduction. I rose from sleep one night, my back a trouble tense, and rode in reverse from the idiopathic to what I believed were the glories, each scene an indulgence of a body I possessed. One was carried above other bodies, hovered over them, was weightless. Another threaded itself a quarter of two couples in intricate maneuvers, switched dance partners easily, or stumbled with a stranger to his place. I watched over her, waited for the sun to come up. And while I was looking out the window, she left, became older, went to sleep next to her, our dying mother. Together we listened to the rattle become more foreign than any accent until it was pure accent, meaning inaudible. It took so little time to get from the walk up to the hospital. I was trying to write a book about my mother, and the bodies were trying to get away from her, seeking pleasure. With my contested middle-aged body, I carried them away from pleasure to this place, to map where fear begins for girls, for women. What I mean to say is that this book is still about my mother, that in the absence of her, I mothered myself all over again with worry, which is how I mother. I spoke to myself the only recourse when you're invisible. But then I heard someone walking behind me when I was a body that others followed. A woman was shoved into a car at the shadowy mouth of a parking garage, and the eyes that didn't know what they were witnessing at 5 are the eyes I look through now. The lessons are cumulative, the fear. I must have known that being my own witness was itself a risk. How can I see events unfolding when the body is completely symptomatic of other bodies, including its own? The problem with memory is that only words can recreate it for others. Each word, its own past and desire for a future. Each word, each sentence, a fragment. And how do you untangle from the telling the speaker's motives? Isn't the second person a form of hiding? Why not just use the I? My daughter said, hugging me, I am a barnacle, and if you remove me, I will die. It's taken me 2 decades to devise a good retort for each of the slights. You'd be amazed at all the improvements in bathroom lighting, the ugly remark before the mirror, diffused, then clarified, the lover's words fading with the steam to let the book appear. A book ordered in prose and point of view, to witness my body as a distant thing that gathers itself over time to become whole. I wrote sentences that don't break. I sought narrative logic to order the mess of memory. At times, I wanted to mistake myself for another and say, sorry, you aren't who I was looking for. Sorry to bother you. The choices were not choices. The billboards were instructive and censorious as I traveled to retrieve each self and found along the way a daughter. I didn't use a map. And yet there she was in a heightened territory with my mother and her mother before her, other mothers and other daughters. I am weary, but know now my fear is an accurate map, even if memory is less than reliable. And the lessons were never somewhere else, but in the hunch of the shoulders before the screen of something I'd written and erased a million times before. The backspace would like me to tap out the soreness of the telling until the telling is gone and can move freely. When I get to the ocean, I promise I'll submit a bikini top that never did much for the soul. For now, I leave my daughter this book as manual, as heirloom, like my mother's wedding dress in the unreachable part of my closet, both glamorous and warning. This is called Your Mother's Advice. Run into a school if a man is chasing you. Run into a church. Fall in love with art and mess up your dress. Dream all you want, but baste before you sew. Ring someone's doorbell, ask to use their phone. Priests are men too. Better yet, stay home. If you skimp, you soak. If you boil, skim the foam. In love, as in war, every hole is a trench. Devil you know or end up alone. Even the prettiest mole can sprout a whisker. Dime con quien andas and I'll tell you who you are. Run into a store, shop until you're safe. Run into a hospital, any public place. Do not take rides. Do not lead him to your car or door. Key him in the eye, knee him in the balls. Do not tell your brothers, they'll kill him. If you must, tell the killer you love him. Then run toward headlights, never the woods. A man will say he loves you to keep you from books. Tell a nurse, dissimulate, have the sense not to get caught shoplifting. Keep your mouth shut when you laugh. Keep your business off the curb. It's all in the sofrito, just watch and learn. Do not tell your friend her fiance tried to kiss you as you slept on their couch after the engagement party. Everyone will blame you. They'll call you mosquita muerta. They'll call you fake. Keep a plant on your desk, straighten up before you leave. A good dancer isn't always the best husband. Dispose properly of sanitary napkins. Steer clear of white jeans. Get pregnant and your father will kill you. Never say no to a party. Las malas lenguas can wag all they want when the music's over. And I had to read this one because I wrote this at Yaddo where I met Margaret. And the room that I was assigned at Yaddo was the room where Philip Roth wrote his short story, The Breast. Do you know this story? I talk about the story in the poem, so I won't tell you, I won't summarize it. But you know, there was this, when they showed me the room, it's like, this is where Philip Roth wrote. And there's a turret, right, that when you keep looking at it, looks like a breast. And it's like, oh, right, that's why Philip Roth wrote this story. And I thought, okay, so this is just a little tidbit about the room, but it's not going to distract me from my project, right? The project I came here with. And I spent my entire time at Yaddo writing this poem about the breast. Did you come to see it? Everybody wanted to see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It's very breast-like.
Yeah, it's very, everybody wanted me to show them the breast room, as we called it, the breast room. You and the breast. By now, you know the story. An English professor awoke one morning to find himself transformed, like Kafka's Gregor, into something unthinkable, something so unlike who he was. In his case, not a beetle, but a breast, young, perfectly round, its nipple erect. What if he had become instead a breast at ease in middle age, the nipple sure of its opinion, but not in constant need to give it? In this room with a turret where the story was written, you are not turned on, but troubled by the memory of your mother in her last years, pushed around in a wheelchair, braless. Did it feel like freedom or resignation to no longer have to roust the girls up and about or make them unwilling interlocutors? For the nursing home, this was mainly convenience. With so much to do, why harness old women who wandered off a darkened stage? Your mother who never answered the door without a girdle, much less a bra? What if the breast had been delicate and shallow, a bead of water trembling on the paddle of a thirsty cactus, flat as a mesa, scarred like an arroyo? Or why not two breasts, one a full cup larger from having nursed too long in the same position while writing recommendation letters? You lean back and stare at the ceiling above the desk, its concentric circles punctuated in the middle by a round light fixture that teardrops into a nipple, and around the nipple, a ragged areola of desiccated wings. One understands when entering a room that others have been there before, but this room is never just itself. It is always a story that hovers over your own. What if the nipple had sprouted a hair and, given the professor's lack of hands, remained forever unplucked? What if the nipple had been inverted and not, as the story goes, phallic? A breast leaking milk, its infected ducts hard and throbbing under a cabbage leaf? The domed ceiling has two cracks like veins under pale skin. On the roof, where the pointed end of the turret lives, is another breast whose nipple pulls energy from the center of the desk to its weather vane. It's hard to get a signal beneath it. You have to sit on the bed to text a friend whose father died yesterday. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, she writes, and fuck capitalism. Framed by the window to the left is a long, thin tree among a thicket. It pushes proudly from its trunk what looks like a breast, because now everything does, but is a scar over a wound called a burl, the result of some type of stress, injury, virus, fungus. Valued for its beauty, this type of scar is often poached, destroying the tree it was trying to protect. A redwood can sprout another redwood from its burl if it thinks it might die. The women in your family, their breasts at any age fall sideward. They never point to future or sky. Each, after sex, are waterfalls into canyons. Starting to feel a little self-conscious about how heavy all these poems are. There are light ones, there are funny ones. This is You to the Future, if I can find it. So these poems are sort of an autobiography, so some of them, they take place from the age of puberty to middle age. So this is sort of, let's say, in the 20s. You to the Future. What would you have said to the future? Future, you will have no scientist in it. Future, your scientist was kissing a Canadian. Future, you could have told me, don't go to his apartment, depress the doorbell for many seconds, wait around the corner in his favorite diner, call him from the dark and humid underground of your last rumbling hope. But future, let me tell you something truly remarkable. There were payphones on subway platforms, which was great when you needed one, but when you needed one, things were often not so great. Do you remember? Does anybody remember when they had phones? I mean, I'm sure Cecilia Vicuña, who is here, remembers the subway payphones. But future, let me tell you something truly remarkable. There were payphones on subway platforms, which was great when you needed one, but if you needed one, things were often not so great. You were late for an interview, or you wanted to be told, don't get on that train, I love you, come back to bed. No one on a subway No one on a subway payphone wanted to hear, hold on. You were lost trying to buy weed, calling some guy's beeper. The receiver and keypad were archives of body, come, city. And in these moments of disorientation of numbers, black and waxy and sticky, the pointer finger brought you closer to your desire with its impeccable memory. You needn't be told lovers will misfire feelings wherever and whatever the mode, but in you, future, no one will know what it's like to make a collect call to reverse the charges, nor remember the ode a Spanish poet wrote to his light bulb late one night in the kitchen. Okay, I'm going to end with this one. I think the last poem provided the tonal shift I wanted for this one. So I wrote some of this book during the pandemic. I think I started it in 2017 and then wrote some of the last poems during the pandemic. And you know this thing in the pandemic that happened where exes were writing to their exes? Like people were writing to their exes. It was a thing. Do you remember this? The pandemic caused this sort of feeling of nostalgia and wondering how your exes were doing. So I got one of these emails from an ex, and rather than write him back, I thought I'd write this poem instead. And then some of my friends have asked me which ex this refers to, and I just want to state publicly that this is a composite of many exes. This is called Emailing Your Exes. Hi, how are you doing? Sorry to be the cliche in your morning. I hope your face mask is working against big droplets. Remember the big droplets were the problem? Big droplets. Do you love the world you are caught in? The wife in finance, the lack of artistic outlet? Still, it's better than living off your talent. Are you still self-conscious about your nose? I've finally lost my derided accent. I said pants while you said trousers. Remember how you disliked tongue kissers on the subway, their vulgate upsetting your crossword? How you wanted to edify the underclass in the proper hanging of picture frames? God bless you for looking past my museum shop replicas. You were loved for your introductions, how you murmured déclassé into my ear and bound my wrists with a necktie you said was vintage. My skin couldn't tell if it was satin or silk. You said it was an innate skill, but now I know at the summit of my career. Are you dying without me? Did you burn the Polaroids? Remember the time I strapped your painting to the roof of my car and it flew off and down the Henry Hudson? How I risked my life to pick up the pieces, how it could have been a performance. The masses would be grateful for your lessons if they could stay home and read, but they are delivering sushi on wobbly bikes and ringing up kombucha behind plastic shields. The memory of us in which I sort of hate you keeps me from despairing at the present losses. This is what resentment, what desire is good for. You are out there somewhere and I'll never send this. When I yelled drop dead, when I wanted to kill you for what you did or said, I was more alive than ever and wanted to feel the big, impossible heartache of the one great love promised in the earliest propaganda. But now that death is not a code switch, but our only register, I come to you, my old flame, as if this email were a vaccine against the sadness that mutates, the curve that never flattens. Thank you.
Thanks again to Margaret Ross, Alan Felsenthal, and Rosa Alcalá. Let's hear it again. And thank you to y'all for joining us for another evening of reading at the Grolier. We're now heading into the interactive portion of the evening, where we hope you will oblige us by helping to stack the chairs in the time-honored tradition along the walls. And we hope that these wonderful poets will stick around and sign books and hobnob with the hoi polloi. So thank you all very much.